Hello everyone, today we will embark on a journey full of surprises and overwhelming, where the secrets of the giant sausage industry are revealed. From vast livestock fields to modern factories, millions of pigs are raised, slaughtered and processed every year, creating billions of tons of sausage, one of the most popular foods in the world. Behind every delicious sausage on the supermarket shelf is a giant production line, where technology, human labor and industrial scale combine to create numbers that make us amazed. Imagine, in many countries, every day tens of thousands of pigs are brought to the slaughterhouse. These pigs have been raised in closed farms, where strict management processes on food, living environment and health ensure that they can grow the fastest, have the most meat and meat industry standards. The pigs are fed a mixture of grains, soybeans and minerals, all controlled by an automated system. They grow so fast that in just a few months they reach an average weight of 100 to 120 kilograms. Ready for slaughter. When the day comes to sell, a series of specialized trucks will take the pigs to the factory. Here, each pig is given a final health check before being put into the automated slaughter system. The entire process must comply with strict hygiene standards. The pigs are stunned with electricity or CO gas to avoid pain. Then put into an upside-down hanging line, their throats cut and their blood drawn. Next, the pig carcasses are passed through a hot water tank to loosen the hair, then transferred to a high-powered hair removal machine. Each pink, clean pig body continues to be cut, its organs sorted, and taken to the cutting area. In giant cold rooms, hundreds of workers and robots work together to separate each part of the meat: lean meat, fatty meat, bones, and organs. It is here that the raw materials for sausages begin to be selected. The red lean meat, interspersed with layers of white fat, is transferred to the grinding line. The meat is passed through a high-speed cutter, the blades rotating thousands of times per minute, turning them into a smooth puree. At the same time, spices such as salt, pepper, garlic, chili powder, onion powder, and each brand's secret flavors are added. A small amount of ice or milk powder is also added to maintain the texture and make the sausage soft. In large factories, all this process takes place in giant steel mixing tanks, which can hold tons of meat at a time. The stirring blades rotate continuously to blend the ingredients, creating a uniform, smooth, and fragrant mixture. This is the soul of the sausage. After that, this mixture is sent to the casing stuffer. Sausage casings can be made from natural pig intestines or artificial collagen. The casings are tens of meters long and are attached to the machine. And in the blink of an eye, each round and even sausage piece flows out like an endless stream. The automatic machine also has the function of twisting the sausage into short pieces, preparing for the cooking or smoking stage. In some places, the sausages are steamed in giant boilers, with precisely controlled temperature and humidity. In other places, they are put into the smoking chamber, where oak or fruit wood is slowly burned, giving off a sweet aroma that permeates every fiber of the meat. The smoke not only creates a distinctive flavor but also helps preserve the sausage for a longer time. After the cooking or smoking process, the sausage is quickly cooled by a cold water spray system or cold air. to keep the product firm and not spoiled. Next is the packaging stage. High-speed machines continuously vacuum and press the packaging tightly onto each sausage. Then print the expiration date, barcode, and brand on a conveyor belt tens of meters long. Each sausage package is neatly arranged, ready to be transported to supermarkets, stores, and the dining tables of millions of families. Behind each seemingly small sausage is an industry worth tens of billions of dollars. Every year, the world consumes millions of tons of sausage, equivalent to millions of pigs slaughtered. Large factories can process thousands of tons of meat every day. Creating countless different types of sausages: fresh sausages, smoked sausages, grilled sausages, cheese sausages, spicy sausages, etc., all of which serve the diverse needs of people. This industry also constantly improves technology to meet global demand. Nowadays, people not only pay attention to production speed but also care about food hygiene and safety, nutrition, and sustainability. Some places have applied robotization technology almost completely. From the stages of peeling, mixing raw materials, stuffing the shell, to packaging, thanks to that, productivity has skyrocketed, errors have been minimized and labor has been saved. But besides the overwhelming scale, this story also evokes many thoughts. Millions of pigs are raised in a closed industrial environment, living short lives just to serve the production line. Giant steel machines operate non-stop, turning lives into consumer products. This is the dark side of the modern food industry, where speed, profit and market demand rule everything. Sausages, with their eye-catching appearance and attractive taste, are actually the crystallization of a complex water surface splashed up a column of white water nearly 10 meters high. It was the breath of a whale, an unmistakable sign. The whole group rushed towards the bow of the ship, each person taking up position as if they had practiced hundreds of times. The captain gave the signal. The rudder turned. The ship tilted slightly to one side and then accelerated, leaving behind white waves. The wind whistled in their ears as the ship cut through the water to chase. The whale continued to swim, slowly but powerfully. Each swing of its giant tail up and down and then hitting the sea surface created a deep sound that echoed through the water. The harpooner was ready, the muscles in his arms tensed, his eyes never leaving the giant black figure. When the distance was close enough, he shouted loudly, then his whole body swung out the strongest charge of his life. The steel spearhead pierced the water surface, embedded in the thick muscular back of the animal. A deep rumble echoed from below, and the sea surface began to boil. The whale thrashed violently. Water columns rose up, causing the ship to sway violently. The people on deck clung tightly to the ropes and poles to avoid being thrown into the sea. The cable attached to the harpoon was so tight that it seemed about to snap. The winch wheel spun rapidly. The friction of the metal created small sparks. The captain shouted to adjust the ship's direction to reduce the pulling force, while two other sailors quickly prepared a spare harpoon. Every second that passed was a battle of wits and strength, between humans and the creature weighing tens of tons. When the whale began to slow down, a second harpoon was launched, then a third, each time accompanied by a determined shout. The whale's blood dyed a large area of water red, mixing with the white foam. Finally, that enormous power gradually died out. The animal floated lazily on the surface of the sea, its breathing weak, its massive body swaying with the rhythm of the waves. No one said anything, only the sound of the waves and the wind, along with the heavy eyes mixed with the feeling of victory of the whole crew. The next task required no less skill and strength. They looped the cable around the whale's tail and attached it to the ship's hydraulic crane. Little by little, the dozens of meter-long body was pulled close to the side of the ship. Seawater poured onto the deck in waves, carrying with it a strong fishy smell. A specialized scalpel was taken out, its blade long and sharp as if it had just been sharpened, and someone began to make the first incision along the whale's belly. The thick skin and white fat were exposed. Large chunks were cut off and immediately sent to the cold storage compartment below. The clacking of the knife against the bones, the panting of the butchers mixed with the wind, creating a harsh harmony of the ocean. The whale's fat was neatly stacked in large wooden crates, the bright red meat carefully classified. Some rare parts such as the tongue, liver, and giant plates of cartilage were kept separately, because their market value was much higher than that of regular meat. The oldest man on board, a silver-haired fisherman, cut each piece of meat while telling the children about the whale hunts of their ancestors. When everything relied on human power and fragile sailing boats, and when each whale was a vital part of the fishing village. When the ship turned its bow to return, the sun was setting in the west. Behind, the red water gradually faded and melted into the endless blue of the ocean. Waves still lapped steadily against the ship's side, like the heartbeat of the sea. Wooden barrels filled with whale meat and blubber lay quietly in the cold hold, as evidence of a hard and proud day of work for those who lived by the sea. The afternoon wind began to get colder, carrying the steam from the waves far out at sea. The ship, heavily loaded with spoils, cut through the waves towards shore, but no one on the deck was resting. A group of sailors were using hoses to spray seawater to clean the deck, which was still stained with whale blood and blubber. Each stream of water mixed with the sound of the winch and the sound of wooden barrels hitting each other, creating a mixed sound but familiar to those who had lived their lives at sea. The youngest butcher, just over 20, was meticulously cutting away the thick chunks of meat remaining around the giant ribs. The shiny steel blade slid through each red piece of meat, revealing the smooth white fat underneath. He worked with absolute concentration, each movement decisive, learning from those who had gone before. The old fisherman stood nearby, observing and instructing. Don't cut across the fibers. The meat will be fibrous. Always follow the grain. That way when processing it will retain its softness. His voice was deep and hoarse, echoing among the sound of the waves. In the lower hold, two other men were stacking blocks of blubber into containers. Whale blubber was not only a food source, but was also melted to make lighting oil and many other products. The wooden barrels were tightly sealed, labeled with the date of capture, and placed neatly in rows. The cold air from the storage compartment wafted out, filling the air there with a strong fishy smell, a smell that only those who had worked in the profession could bear for long. The sun gradually lowered, the orange-yellow light spread across the sea, reflecting on the tan skin of the sailors. Some people took the opportunity to sit down by the ship's side, sipping hot tea from an old steel pot. The tea smoke rose, mingling with the salty wind, bringing a bit of warmth in the cold space of the ocean. A few others were still busy with knives and large wooden chopping boards, cutting up meat to dry right on the ship. Long clotheslines stretched from the mast to the ship's side. Each piece of red meat was strung on, swaying to the rhythm of the waves. In the distance, flocks of seabirds had begun to circle, attracted by the smell of meat and blood still lingering on the deck. Their shrill cries echoed, sometimes diving down close to the water's surface to pick up scraps of meat. A few boldly landed straight on the deck, chased away by the old sailor with a shout and a wooden stick. But just a few minutes later, on the ship also changed. The faces smeared with sweat and sea salt gradually relaxed, mixed with relieved smiles. Arriving at the port meant the hardest part of the job was done. And now it was time to reap the rewards. But no one forgot that every trip was fraught with risk. A sudden storm, a strong kick from the whale, or just a small mistake in handling the cable, all could take a life. The fishing port appeared more clearly in the sunset. Dozens of other boats were anchored, and on the shore, people gathered to wait. Children's voices rang out when they saw the ship from afar. Dogs barked loudly, and women called out to each other as they recognized the silhouettes of their husbands, fathers, or brothers. When the ship docked, the anchor rope was lowered. The strong men on the shore quickly tied it, and then the unloading team began to work. Wooden crates containing whale meat and blubber were passed from the deck to the wharf. Stacked on carts, the pungent fishy smell permeated the area, but no one cared. It was the smell of life, of income, and of full meals for the whole community. The buyer stood and took notes quickly, each number written in a book along with the name of the boat and the date of the catch. Some of the meat would be sold fresh at the nearby fish market. The rest would be sent to the processing plant. The sky was getting dark. The yellow lights from the electric poles shining on the sparkling water. On the boat, the sailors began to pack up their gear, clean the spears, roll up the ropes, and check the engines for the next trip. The old fisherman sat in the corner of the deck, his eyes looking out at the dark sea. He had been on hundreds of such hunts, but each one left him with a feeling of pride and heaviness, pride in the skill and strength of men, but also a clear understanding of the price that each life at sea had to pay. Another night has fallen upon the fishing village. The sound of waves lapping the shore incessantly, as if reminding us that tomorrow, or the day after, these ships will leave the dock again, heading out to the deep sea, where giant shadows are still moving slowly under the dark water. The struggle lasted for nearly an hour. The whale weakened. Its movements became slower and less powerful. When it finally surfaced, its mouth opened, its breathing labored, its deep black eyes seemed to penetrate the people on board. No one spoke for a moment. Then, the work had to continue. The cable tightened, the crane lowered, hooked onto the giant tail and began to pull it close to the side. Cutting a whale in the middle of the sea at night was a terrible challenge. The headlights illuminated the entire deck, the cold light reflecting on the bright red bloodstains. The knife made long cuts, The white fat stacked into slippery blocks. Some cut, some wrapped, some stacked in boxes, all coordinated rhythmically to the sound of the waves and the wind. It was almost dawn. The work was barely finished, leaving only the giant skeleton floating on the side of the ship, waiting to be released back into the sea. The sun rose, dispelling the mist, revealing the vast ocean and the gradually spreading red streaks of water. The ship, heavily laden with booty, turned its bow to the fresh meat was washed with seawater, then transferred to cold containers to prepare for transportation to consumers. Some parts were brought straight to the nearby fish market. The sound of selling rang out, mixed with the sound of bargaining, the sound of knives and chopping boards being knocked repeatedly. Buyers chose each piece of dark red meat, shiny white fat, wrapped it in banana leaves or oil paper, and then took it home to process. In a corner of the market, a woman was grilling whale meat right on hot coals, the aroma spreading, attracting passers-by to stop by. In the midst of that bustling atmosphere, the captain stood still for a moment, watching his ship being cleaned on the deck. He knew that in just a few days, the ship would leave the port again. The hunting season was at its peak, and if he missed it, the whole year would be lost. He looked up, looking at the horizon. There, dark clouds had begun to gather. A sign of the coming storm season. 3 days later, when the wind began to pick up and clouds covered the sky, they still decided to set sail. A pod of blue whales, the largest on the planet, was passing through the area. A chance not to be missed, even if bad weather turned the trip into a nightmare. This time, the ship was loaded with enough fuel, dry food, and water to last a week. The harpoon had been thoroughly inspected, the cables replaced, and the winches greased to ensure smooth operation. As the ship left the harbor, waves were already higher than a man's head, crashing against the side, sending water overboard. The helmsman had to hold on to the wheel, keeping the ship from being thrown off course. Far from shore, the wind howled through the mast, whipping up stinging drops of salt water into his face. The bow beam swept over each high wave, occasionally revealing the giant, arched back of a whale in the gray water. But approaching in this weather was extremely dangerous. A sharp heel could send the harpooner slipping or falling into the sea. When a blue whale surfaced near the ship, the crew held their breath. Its bow rose first, then its long back, and finally its huge tail.